The Window Scratcher, Part 1. The night was still, and the moon hung low above the quiet little town. Inside his bedroom, a boy named Caleb lay restless beneath his blanket, unable to fall asleep. Just as his eyes began to close, a sound broke the silence. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It came from his window. His heart hammered. At first he told himself it was only a branch swaying in the wind, but when he gathered the courage to peek through the curtain, there was no branch at all. Instead, deep grooves stretched across the wooden frame, as though long claws had raked it. Caleb gasped and stumbled back, slamming the curtain shut. He pressed his body against the wall, covering his ears, praying for the sound to stop. Eventually it did, but when morning came, the scratches were gone, leaving no proof of the nightmare. At school the next day, when Caleb tried to tell his classmates, they laughed and called him a storyteller. But he could not forget. Somewhere in the shadows, something had touched his window, and he knew it was not of this world. The classroom was filled with the usual chatter, but Caleb barely heard it. His mind replayed the sound of nails dragging across the wood. Their teacher, Miss Evelyn, stood at the chalkboard as the students copied notes. Everything about her seemed ordinary until Caleb heard it. A faint whisper slithering through the air. "Obey, or I will come again." The words were cold, cutting into his thoughts. He shot upright, eyes darting around the room, but none of the other students reacted. They wrote quietly, heads bent, unaware of the strange voice. Caleb's stomach twisted. He turned toward the board just as Miss Evelyn glanced over her shoulder. For the briefest moment, her shadow stretched unnaturally long across the wall, curling like sharp fingers. Caleb blinked hard, and the shadow snapped back to normal. Fear chilled him to the bone. Could it be? Was the scratching visitor from last night somehow connected to his teacher? That evening, Caleb decided to shake off his fear. His parents had told him not to wander after dark, but he ignored them, meeting his two friends in the empty playground near the school. They joked, laughed, and dared each other to climb the fence. Caleb forced himself to laugh too, though inside he still felt uneasy. The night air was colder than usual, and the moonlight seemed harsher. Then, just as he tossed a stone into the shadows, a sound rose above their giggles. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The others froze, then bolted for home. Caleb's body refused to move at first. He felt the noise digging into his chest, each scrape louder than the last. When he finally sprinted back to his room and shut the door, he thought he had escaped. But as he crawled into bed, the sound returned. This time, the scratching etched words into the wood itself. Letters slowly forming. You were warned. Caleb's breath hitched and his body went numb. In class the next morning, Caleb could hardly keep his eyes open. He sat pale and jumpy at his desk. His classmates teased him, but one girl noticed something different. Her name was Lily. Quiet, thoughtful, and often overlooked, Lily saw how Caleb's hands trembled when Miss Evelyn walked by. At first, she thought he was simply tired. But later that day, as the children left school, Lily paused at the window. She gasped. For an instant, Miss Evelyn's reflection did not move as she did. The teacher walked forward, but the reflection remained, staring directly at Lily with hollow eyes. When she blinked, it snapped back into place. Shaken, Lily hurried home. That night, she couldn't stop thinking about what she had seen. Caleb's terror was real. Their teacher was not who she seemed to be. Caleb tried desperately to stay awake that night. He wrapped himself in blankets, lit a small lamp, and kept his eyes fixed on the window. Hours dragged by, but just when his eyelids began to grow heavy, the sound came again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. His lamp flickered, the window rattled, and then he saw it. A pale, bony hand pressed against the glass, its nails impossibly long, its skin stretched thin like paper. Caleb screamed, tumbling out of bed. He pulled the blanket over his head, trembling as footsteps approached his door. His parents burst in, annoyed by his cries, only to find nothing wrong. The window was perfectly clean. No scratches, no hand, no sign of disturbance. They scolded him for his imagination, but Lily, who lived nearby, heard the scream echo across the street. The next morning, she approached him quietly and said, "I believe you. Tonight, I'll stay awake too."
From that moment, Caleb and Lily shared a secret. They decided not to tell the others. Not yet. If Miss Evelyn truly was connected to the strange events, speaking too freely might draw her attention. But Lily was determined to learn more. At recess, she asked a few classmates if they had ever seen or heard anything unusual. Some rolled their eyes, but one boy admitted he sometimes heard scratching in his dreams, as though something was clawing at his mind. Another girl said she once saw a pale face at her window late at night, but she had convinced herself it was a trick of the moonlight. Lily's heart sank. It wasn't just Caleb. Others had felt the presence too. The haunting was spreading, and it was only a matter of time before someone else was taken. Lily clenched her fists. She would not let that happen. One evening, Lily put her plan into motion. She pretended to forget her notebook and slipped back into the empty classroom after everyone had left. The building was silent, eerily so. The desk stood neatly in rows, and the chalkboard still carried the day's lessons. As the sunlight faded, shadows stretched across the room. Then Lily saw her. Miss Evelyn stood by the window, though she had left with the other teachers hours before. But this was not the smiling, gentle teacher the children knew. Her face was pale and hollow, her eyes sunk deep like empty wells. Long, glistening nails extended from her fingers. Lily froze as Miss Evelyn dragged those nails down the glass. Scratch, scratch. Sparks of light flickered against the pane. Lily ducked under a desk, hands shaking, heart thundering. The figure continued to scratch, whispering words Lily could not understand. The next morning, chaos swept the school. Every classroom window was covered in deep scratches. The teachers insisted it was the work of vandals, but the children whispered about curses and ghosts. Caleb and Lily exchanged a fearful look. They both knew the truth. This was no prank. That night, Lily told Caleb they had no choice. They had to confront the ghost, or the entire school would remain haunted. Caleb shook his head, his fear nearly breaking him. But Lily's voice was firm. If we run, she will keep coming. If we hide, she will find us anyway. At last, Caleb agreed, though his hands trembled. Together they prepared to face the terror. They devised a plan. After school, they would hide in the classroom and wait. Lily brought a lantern, a small bag of salt, and a mirror she believed could reveal spirits. Caleb, though terrified, carried a heavy book to use as a weapon if needed. They sat together in silence as the sun dipped below the horizon. The classroom grew colder and colder, the air thick and heavy, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. Hours passed with nothing but silence. Then, at last, it came. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The sound slid across the window pane, each stroke deeper and sharper than the last. Caleb's face went pale, but Lily gripped his hand, whispering, "Stay strong. She's here." The lantern flickered violently as the scratching grew louder. Slowly, a white hand appeared on the glass, nails gleaming like silver blades. Lily's breath caught, but she raised the mirror with shaking hands. The reflection appeared instantly. Miss Evelyn's face twisted and hollow, her lips curved into a wicked grin. Caleb whimpered, pulling back, but Lily held her ground. The reflection hissed, its mouth moving, though the real Miss Evelyn was nowhere in sight. "You should not have looked." The glass trembled and the smell of burning chalk filled the air. Slowly, the ghostly figure pressed its face against the window, then began to crawl halfway through, its clawed hands reaching into the classroom. Caleb grabbed Lily's arm in terror. She stood frozen, the mirror still raised, as the scratcher emerged from the shadows.